All right, yeah, let's do it. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, November 3rd Township Committee meeting. Please join me as we salute the American flag. I pledge allegiance
To the
The flag
of
of the United States of America,
to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under
indivisible,
God,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and justice for
and
all.
justice for all.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975. This is the state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2020 to the news record and Star Ledger December 2019, and by filing said notice in the office of the township clerk.
Ms. Adams,
Here.
Mr. Daffis, Mr. DeLuca,
Here,
Mr. Lembrick,
here,
Mayor McGehee.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has a discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas it's a desire of the governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all its regular and special meetings.
so moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
yes,
Lembrick,
Yes,
Mayor McGehee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. And good evening, everyone. And again, welcome to our November 3rd Township Committee meeting. I will go through our agenda for this evening. We will first have a recommendation for our boards and committees for the Senior Advisory Committee. Then after that, we will have public comment on agenda items only, limited to 3 minutes. From there, we will go into our Board of Health meeting. After that, we have reports from departments, and really you just have one is from our Finance Department. It's the October budget report, which we all received, and Mr. Closer will ask questions or answer questions if we have any. From there, we'll have our administrative reports, where we'll hear from Mr. Gimes, our Township Administrator, from Mr. Desiderio, Township Attorney, and then Ms. Fritzen, our Township Clerk. After that, we have reports from elected officials. We'll hear from Ms. Adams, then we'll hear from Mr. DeLuca, Mr. Lembrick, and then myself. Discussion items, we have 2 tonight. We have one regarding resolution of support to our Zero Waste Community Initiative, which will be led by Ms. Adams. And then also Mr. Kaloje will lead us in the best practices in relation to our inventory at the township. Our consent agenda has several items on this evening, inclusive but not limited to awarding contracts, the appointment of individuals, as well as a resolution to support zero waste as well. We'll also approve minutes from regular session meetings and closed session meetings as well. From there, we'll have our final public comment on any subject matter, and then we will adjourn. So let's go ahead and get started. And I will now yield the floor. Who's actually doing the boards and committee senior advisor? That would be Mr. DeLuca tonight, because Mr. Daffis will not be with us.
okay, thank you, Mayor. And we have Barbara Rosengarten moving over as a panelist and should be appearing soon. We, on behalf of Mr. Daffis, we would like to present to the Township Committee, who we affectionately call Bobby Rosengarten. But Barbara is here, and we'd like you to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about how you think you might help us with the Senior Advisory Committee.
Well, I've been a resident in Maplewood for almost 50 years. I am a member and treasurer of the Women's Club, and have been in that capacity for quite a number of years. And I spend a lot of time in town. My life really revolves around being in town. And I'd like to do something where I feel I will have something I can give back and do something that's meaningful for the town.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Unless anyone has any questions, I would like to move the nomination.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes, thank you, Bobby.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes. And thank you for your service and welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Excellent. We'll now move on to our next agenda item, which is public comment on any agenda items only. I will yield the floor to Mr. Waltz.
Evening, Mayor and Township Committee. We will now begin the first public comment portion of the meeting on agenda items only. If any meeting attendee would like to address the Township Committee, please use the raise your hand function. We will convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak. Would anybody like to address the Township Committee? Mayor, first up, I have Joe Strupp. We will convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes.
Mr. Strupp, you're on mute.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. This is not an agenda, but I wanted to read if I can very quickly. Is that okay?
What, Mr. Strupp, what did you say? Sorry.
This is not an agenda item, but it's a very quick item. I just wanted to say before the meeting.
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Strupp, and we appreciate you'll have to wait till the next part of the public comment per our ordinance, but hopefully we'll be there pretty quick tonight. So
No problem. I'll wait.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yep, no worries. Mr. Waltz, is there anyone else who wants to address the TC on agenda items only?
I see no one else, Mayor.
Thank you. Seeing no one, we will close our first public comment and move on to our Board of Health meeting. With Mr. Daffis unable to attend this evening, we'll start that meeting. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231 of Public Laws of 1975, this is to state for the record, the adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting, maintaining annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing annual notice of regular meetings of 2020 to the News Record and Star Ledger December 2019, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams,
Here, still.
Mr. DeLuca,
Here.
Lambert,
Here.
Mayor McGehee,
Here.
Mr. Daffis. I'll note that Mr. Daffis is absent for this meeting. Whereas Chapter 231 Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas desire the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in a formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observation of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second,
Ms. Adams,
yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the October 5th, 2021 Board of Health meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. I'll now yield the floor to Nurse Marakova for our report.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. All right. So, First, I'll go over the nursing and COVID-19 statistics for the month of October. So as of November 3rd, today, we have a total of 1,885 COVID-19 cases for the Township of Maplewood since the start of the pandemic in March of 2020. On the left side here, you can see that there is a graph of COVID cases by month since around July when the vaccine became available to the general public. As you can see, mostly it was unvaccinated individuals that took up majority of the cases in July and August, and now it's becoming half-half with breakthrough cases due to variants that are starting to show up due to not acquiring herd immunity yet. On the right-hand side, you can see that there's the age distribution from July 2021 to October 2021. We've had 329 cases in that time span. Right here, this is the ages 0 to 9 of our currently unvaccinated individuals who luckily today were eligible to get vaccinated against COVID-19. But as you can see, the younger population here is taking up majority of our cases for the time span between July and August. A lot is because these tend to be our unvaccinated population as well, these younger people. And on the bottom over here, you can see our travel-related cases due to various variants that are in different regions in different countries. People travel internationally and bring back different variants of COVID-19. In July, you can see over here, the green is the vaccinated and the purple is the unvaccinated. And even in October, it was mostly of our vaccinated individuals that acquired COVID-19, mostly from travel related. This is the COVID-19 activity level report for the state of New Jersey, ending in the week of October 23rd. Essex County is still in moderate transmission rates, and our Cali score is 2. So we're still talking steady here. This is the Maplewood vaccination statistics as of October 26th. We will have data from the 5 to 11-year-olds in a couple of weeks as we start to initiate COVID-19 vaccination for them. But as you can see, we have a pretty good vaccination rate amongst most of our general population, 12-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 89% fully vaccinated, 100% for 65 and over. Vaccine courses complete for Essex County for all ages is 73%. Specifically for the 12 through 17, we have 84% in Essex County. So they have about 16% unvaccinated eligible individuals between the age of 12 to 17 that hopefully we will be able to target soon enough. October local COVID testing and vaccination efforts. Maplewood Health Department were able to vaccinate 2 homebound vaccinations. They will soon increase as people are now getting the booster shots and are becoming more eligible. In November, there will be local COVID testing and vaccination efforts for our Pfizer vaccination for 5 to 11-year-olds with the school district, partnered by the Maplewood Health Department, South Orange Health Department, and the South Orange Maplewood School District. This is the Essex County COVID-19 vaccination and testing locations. As you can see, the standalone Essex County sites span the Essex County College, the West Orange Kmart, and the Sears Building. The sites are open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And vaccines for ages 12 and older are Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. But as you can note here, vaccines for ages 5 to 11 have different time frames. They're Monday to Friday from 4 to 7 p.m. and Saturday from 9 to 5 p.m. And you do have to do an appointment only for children ages 5 to 11. So to schedule that appointment, you visit essexcovid.org or you call the number at 973-877-8456. They are also doing booster shots and third doses for Moderna and Pfizer, and appointments are not necessary for that. Either you can walk into any site between those time frames that they are open. This is just a graph of the number of fully vaccinated in Essex County as we move through the vaccine efforts. This is just a little graph that we have here to help people visualize when they can receive their dose, their second dose, and their booster. We will update this hopefully when New Jersey State Health Department or the CDC comes out with something for the 5 to 11-year-olds. but you can see it will probably be the same. It will be the same as the 12 to 17-year-olds. When you can receive your first dose, which is Pfizer, that's the only one that is currently approved for children ages 5 to 17 years old. The second dose will be 21 days after that first dose. Your booster shot for Pfizer and Moderna are both 6 months after your second dose, and your eligibility is if you're 65 and older, or if you're 18 and older with a high risk of severe COVID-19, or your occupation puts you at risk too for COVID-19. And the J&J, you can get a booster shot 2 months after your first dose, and you can get either Moderna or Pfizer or another J&J. This is a little flow chart that helps you understand if you should get a booster shot. If you're ready, you just go through the flow chart and answer those questions. A little flow chart that you go through. And these are the Essex County mobile vaccination sites and testing schedule for this week of the first week of November. No appointments are necessary. Vaccines and tests are free, and you can just walk up. And the school district has a weekly COVID-19 mobile testing clinic on site at the Columbia High School gym parking lot, Saturdays 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. That is still ongoing. And today they announced that they will also be adding a weekly COVID mobile testing clinic at the Board of Education located on Academy Street on Wednesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Starting next week, November 10th. So once they update this flyer, we will update this flyer and send it out in our communications as well. And then some health promotion that happened at the Maplewood Health Department for the month of October. We had a Medicare 101 presentation partnered with Braven Health that was able to answer and provide education about Medicare, who qualifies for Medicare, and answer any questions. And then we had a community healthcare screening at the Maplewood Senior Center with Braven Health, as well as the Diabetes Foundation that came to do blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, and the Diabetes Foundation was there to give supplies for people who need diabetes supplies. And state health insurance enrollment period. It is now open and opened on November 1st. So if you don't have insurance and you need insurance, go to Get Covered New Jersey and get started. And that is all.
Thank you, Nurse Marmakova. Question, that flow chart that you had, can we get that on the website? Because that was definitely a lot to absorb, but I think it's interesting to kind of have that decision tree.
Yes, it is on the website.
Okay, good.
Yep, it's there, yep.
Perfect. Would any of my colleagues like to address the Board of Health Department? All right. Hearing no questions, I'll now open the floor to the public to ask any questions that they may have. Mr. Waltz, if anyone would like to address the Board of Health, please bring them into the panel.
I have no one, Mayor.
Okay. Hearing none, then at this point we will. I will move on to adjourn our Board of Health. Your motion?
Second, I'll move it.
Second.
Awesome. All in favor?
Thank you, Mayor.
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you. Our next Board of Health meeting will be Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. So thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Mayor.
Marmakova, and we'll see you very soon. All right, we'll now move on in our agenda. We have reports from departments. We all received Mr. Koloj's October budget report. Is Mr. Koloj with us? Because I can't see my screen. He is not with us.
Mr. Koloj is not here tonight. I was going to mention a couple things from his report or my report, but his report is pretty self-explanatory unless you have any questions.
I have no questions. Any questions from my colleagues? All right.
None for Mr. Koloj.
Hearing none, we'll move on the agenda, and we'll now, nice segue, we'll go right into our administrative reports. And Mr. Jimes, I'll yield the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. First, you'll notice your agenda looks a little different tonight. That's because it's our first meeting using the new agenda management system on the back end. On our end, it's worked very well. I think Clerk Fritzen could probably attest to the fact that this reduced agenda preparation time by, at least 2/3, if not more. So This was a great process, and we're working on, thumbs up, all right. We're working on getting access for you on your end with some of the processes that allow you to see the agenda and follow along your way, or you could still do the paper way, but this has been an immense help to us. So I'd just like to thank you all for your support in this endeavor. And Clerk Fritzen and Ms. Gary, her trusty assistant in the office, were amazing in the launching of this. Best practices is on the agenda tonight, as it's required to be, as mentioned previously by CFO Kaloje. We scored over 90%, which means we're entitled to our full allotment of what is often referred to as state aid, but is really just money that is owed to us anyway from the state government. So we're happy that the township is efficient in its operations and ethical in its operations. And, Maplewood has been like that consistently long before my arrival as well. So I'm happy to report that. There's going to be a bond ordinance at the next meeting for the dispatch console. And in that bond ordinance, there'll be some cleaning up of some engineering line items so we can avoid deferred charges in 2022. You'll have that well in advance of the meeting, and CFO Kaloje will be here to answer any questions as it relates to that. On the financial front, just very briefly, Mr. Kaloje mentioned that all of our contractual salary, wages, other expenses continue to be in order. Actually, other expenses are performing a little better than usual because our department heads had taken his and my direction early on to really be judicious on how they're using their money, given the obvious challenges we had with revenue in the pandemic. Also, as it relates to that, on the agenda tonight are some transfer resolutions. As you all know from being here for several years, this is the time of year where we transfer, money from one account to another. Nothing out of the ordinary. This happens in every town, and none of the amounts being transferred really stand out as anything to be overly concerned about. So if there's questions when that comes up, I'll be happy to answer those. As it relates to Maple Terrace, as you may be aware, we've received authorization from the DEP to begin purchasing trash racks, for the pipes over there. So Director Kittner has been working closely with the vendors to work as quickly as possible to make sure that gets accomplished in as fast a time as we possibly can. The 2021 road program update, Broadview and Durant have been complete. Harvard is being worked on in conjunction with the school. And when we figure that out, we'll let you know and give you an update on that. From a technological standpoint as well, Assistant Administrator Barnett and I met with a vendor today that handles event applications. Obviously, Maplewood has many events coming in from outside people who want to do, events here in Maplewood. So we're working to make that more efficient as well. A similar process to what we have now, but using the electronic version. So, as I said when I started, and as I continue to do, anytime there's a way to increase efficiencies, I will look to do that, and we will look to do that. So, and your support on that is always appreciated. That is, and one last thing of resolution, as you see on the agenda, hiring of building attendants and addressing the hourly wages of current attendants. We did an exhaustive review of our current staff. There were some recommendations that the hourly wages were low. I agreed with that, along with Director Mancuso, and we decided to propose to upping those wages to something a little more palatable that would help keep people here, on a more regular basis. And we're hiring staff to get back up to where we were, hopefully at some point, before the pandemic. So we're, getting that staff up and running as best as possible. Otherwise, that is all I have. And any questions on agenda items, I can deal with that right now.
Mr. DeLuca.
In Mr. Kaloje's memo, he talks about the insurance claims. Where are we with those? Do we have a sort of ballpark number of the amount of money we're going to get from insurance?
I don't have a total amount, but we have been getting some reimbursements already. They've been working pretty quickly. We received a large reimbursement from, as it relates to dealing with Maple Crest Park and some of the damage that was done there, and I think close to $80,000. So at least that was the biggest one that's come in. So I don't have a total number, but we have been getting some funds. And I can get you a more detailed report on that within the next couple of days.
So let's talk about the library offline, because that money we want to fold into the reconstruction.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Any more questions for Mr. Gines?
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick thing. The agenda was great. I did notice the difference, and it was appreciated that the links were right in there. I would just ask that the Board of Health minutes and agenda also be linked in that. so I don't have to go searching through the emails to find the
Yeah,
right one.
we realized the glitch in that after the fact, and we were on a training call after that, and we updated all the future templates to have Board of Health meeting on it. So going forward, that will always be on there.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Any further questions, Mr. Gimes? All right. Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Gimes. We'll now hear from our Township Attorney, Mr. Desiderio.
Mayor, I have no report.
Sorry, Mayor, I have a question. I'm not sure whether it's more appropriate for Mr. Gimes or Mr. Desiderio, so maybe this is the right time to ask it.
Perfect. Let's right in the middle. Let's do it.
Okay. So just wanted to see where we're at in terms of planning and approvals for the spray park at Maple Crest. I mean, I know that, there's been work being done at the recreation level, at the engineering level in terms of planning. And, given that, after this meeting, I will only have, at most 3 meetings of the Township Committee left before my term ends. I just want to sort of see, my understanding is all of the funds for this, have already been allocated and approved, but I just wanted to get an update of where we stand, and to the extent the Township Committee has to take any further action to move the spray park forward, and it's not just a matter of the administrative departments doing what they need to do to execute on what the TC has already done. I want to understand what the Township Committee still has remaining to vote on, to approve, to do, to move this project from the planning stages to make sure it becomes reality. And I like I said, I wasn't sure whether that's a Mr. Gimes question in terms of status or a Mr. Desiderio question in terms of if there's anything further we need to vote on in terms of a resolution or anything like that.
Mr. Gimes?
From my vantage point, the final decision that needs to be made is the location of the spray park. There's been some discussions whether it would be by the tennis court, or I guess I'm not sure how to describe the location, but in the middle, someplace closer to the benches, to the walkway. So that's really the final decision that needs to be made, and that's a policy decision. I know there was some talk about the recreation. I think it was the advisory committee that was going to discuss that and make a recommendation. So
yeah, and we did. But there was a little bit of a disconnect in that the engineering department didn't have all the plans. And when I spoke with the engineer after our Recreation and Human Services Committee, we talked about trying to do something as a complete project rather than, and getting maybe more OSTF money for it, because if it's in one location, it doesn't include the reconstruction or the rehabilitation of the tennis courts, or the elimination of some and then the reconstruction of another. If it's in a different location, then it would include that. So long story short, I think there needs to be more discussion, not just externally, but internally. And I think it eventually needs to be, and I was going to tell Mr. DeLuca to ask him to put it on the agenda for Engineering Public Works, because there's been a little bit of a disconnect with regard to whether or not engineering had the same plans and what the decision's going to be. And Rec Advisory also discussed it recently, and that was coming back to Recreation and Human Services. So it's still kind of a little bit out there. The engineer, and I don't disagree with him, it might be advisable to apply for more OSTF funds and do it as a complete project in the coming year, since the spray ground won't be able to be done until this coming year anyway.
Mr. Gimes or Mr. Desiderio, anything else?
Now, I would simply say, as to process, once this is all done, it'll come back to Mr. Gimes, who will then report to the Township Committee as to its location and implementation. And we can do that simply by a motion where each of you will vote as to giving the go-ahead. I don't think it needs to be anything more formal than that.
Okay. So then, Mr. DeLuca, will this be on your agenda for the next Engineering Public Works, Planning Public Works meeting?
I guess so, even though we jettisoned it, but I guess it's coming back.
It's boomeranging.
So, okay, well, all right, so then once you're done with it, Ms. DeLuca, then where will we go next to, let's just put this on record, where we're gonna go to get this done.
Let's just make a decision next week.
Okay, so then after your meeting, wherever you decide, well, the location we decide at your meeting.
I'm sorry, I think the location something will come back here for the next township committee meeting.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll make that an agenda discussion item for the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, just, speaking personally, I'd be very glad to be able to cast whatever vote I can on this to move the project forward before the end of my term, just because, this is something that I've been with and would like to see. Obviously it's not going to get built for a while, till after I'm out of office, but if I can, cast a yes vote to, pass this, that would be great.
Perfect.
Thanks all.
Ms. Fritzen, can you put that on the this agenda for Monday, the 15th, discussion item, spray park location / VD for Mr. DeLuca?
Yes, Mayor.
Perfect, thank you. Any further questions for Mr. John Desiderio? All right, I'm going to yield the floor to Mr. Desiderio.
I have no report, Mayor.
Any additional questions just for Mr. Desiderio? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Desiderio. I'll now yield the floor to Ms. Fritzen.
Thanks, Mayor. So I'm just going to give a short report about the general election yesterday. And I do want to say first that the Township Committee and the public received the Maplewood numbers. Of course, two of our districts, and I want to explain, District 12 at the Maplewood Community Center and District 22 at Columbia High School. I have no numbers because the board workers in, error, did not bring the printout to Town Hall. So we just have no numbers for those particular districts. But, first I want to congratulate locally Miss Adams, who unofficially had 4,122 votes, and Ms. Cripe, who had 4,032 votes. And to report that public question number 3 failed unofficially without the two districts, 2111 to 2777. And total number of voters was 5,296. Again, all these numbers are going to go up once we get our numbers for two districts that are completely missing. So, elections are always interesting, challenging. I've never faced an election that's the same from one year to the next, but I have an amazing staff, and I want to say that, throughout the day, and also the weeks in preparation, the township staff is just awesome, and I utilize all departments. And certainly the night when we're collecting the vote totals and things, I have a great staff that assists throughout that. One person can't do this, and they're just amazing, and I want to recognize them for all their assistance. I'm going to leave elections now unless there's any questions. I have just want to go over the next event, Mayor, which is Veterans Day. And we have our 18th annual Maplewood Veterans Day slated for a week from Thursday. And that's Thursday, November 11th at 11 a.m. And we'll be having the same Veterans Day we had last year for the safety of our veterans, public, and anyone that we encourage to attend. And it'll be outside in the back parking lot of Town Hall. Again, drive-in style, drive-in theater style. And we just, do it outside on a stage, and we're going to be utilizing the community services stage this time, which will be probably better than the flatbed we used last year. And it'll be terrific again. It'll have music, it'll have singers, speeches. It's what the veterans deserve. We can't do it safely inside yet, but it's important to our township that we do provide a nice program for our veterans. So I look forward to seeing everybody a week from Thursday in the back parking lot.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. I'm just going to say right now that thank you for your efforts in this election. You know, when we think about it, this is the 4th different type of election you've done in the last 2 years. I mean, really think about it. You know, there was a consistent way we did elections through 2019. And then when COVID hit, you had a different type of election in June 2020, a different type of election in November of 2020, a different type of election again in June of 2021. And now there's 4 different types of versions of the election that you've had to do and be flexible. So I personally appreciate you're able to be nimble and flexible, and from locations to how we vote, everything. So I just wanted to recognize you and the team and say thank you. So
Thank you.
Any
Mayor.
questions for Ms. Fritzen? All right. Hearing none. Thank you again, Ms. Fritzen. We'll
Thank
now
you,
move
Mayor.
on. You're welcome. We'll now move on to agenda item number 10. We'll have reports from elected officials. We'll first hear from Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the community, and I thought I'd do so. I just have a couple paragraph report for, not report, a statement that my running mate Jermaine Kripe and I released this afternoon. And it's basically to the Maplewood community to thank every resident who let your voices be heard in this year's election. Our right to vote is something that we hold dear as women, and for Jermaine as a person of color. Too many of our ancestors struggled and died to give us this right to choose how and by whom we are governed. So thank you for getting out and being a part of our democratic process. Thank you for your vote for us. We also voted on a very contentious issue on the ballot, and residents campaigned hard for what they supported. Unfortunately, there were folks on both sides who acted in ways that are beneath us. But here we are on the day after, alive and with an opportunity to make use of this time. As other leaders in our community have stated, yesterday's election outcome should not be seen as a personal attack on anyone, not on our children, not on our BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color community, not on each other. Residents disagreed on what was best for our children, and that happens all the time. The bad behavior of trespassing and name calling was unfortunate, but this is an opportunity for us to model the lessons we've tried to instill in our children, how to disagree with civility and come together to move forward to address the underlying issue of our fields. Both of us are committed to working toward that end and look forward to figuring out how to do it and how to fund it. So, and to that, I'll say that I also spoke with Village President Sheena Collum today after the release of this statement, and she and I talked a little bit about this issue and how we did have a joint committee a few years back that Mr. Lembrick and I attended on the field usage, the fees, the special fees for field usage, and using that money to maintain. So we think it's not only did I ask Mr. DeLuca to put this on for Engineering Public Works Committee, we should also talk about it with OSTF and deal with some ideas that we might come up with for extra funding through OSTF, whether it's another penny on the tax or for the Open Space Trust Fund money, or how we can get creative about that so that we can maintain the fields better. And it's not just at DeHart, it's at Borden Park, it's at all the fields. So she and I spoke about sort of reconvening that subcommittee, but more importantly, bringing in the school district to that. And, you know, both fields, the school district, I mean, what, $160 million we're, you know, committing to renovations of our district's buildings and facilities, including 2 of the sports fields. And since the school district is always very able and willing to utilize our parks and South Orange's parks and fields for, practices for their sports teams, it seems only fair that we have them at the table to discuss also the reverse of that. The clubs and the recreation things being able to use their fields, which all of our taxpayers also help to maintain and refurbish or turf. So those are the two issues I wanted to bring up with regard to the issue, the referendum on the ballot, and how we can move forward. And Ms. Kripe and I are already discussing other ideas, but I thought my conversation with Ms. Collin this afternoon was a good first step in moving forward. And then lastly, I would just report on the Environmental Advisory Committee is working on environmental resource inventory, updating that for the township, and in not too long a time we'll need a resolution by the TC to accept that. But I'm just letting you know that that's being worked on. And I'm sort of like election hungover here, so I think that's all I have. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. We'll now hear from Mr. DeLuca.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to congratulate Ms. Adams and Ms. Kripe on your election victory. I have a number of updates I'd like to give. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have Resolution 325-21, which amends the contract with the architects for the library, Sage and Coombe. And these are design changes that are due to Tropical Storm Ida. So, everything got pushed back, but we're making some significant changes in the design of the new library. And so the way this is working is the library board has approved this resolution so far. And if we approve it tonight, then we'll move forward. Mr. Desiderio would like us to do dual resolutions because we have both grant money and township money here. So that's, I don't know if you wanted to say anything more, Mr. Desiderio, but.
No, I just want to make sure that for purposes of our ultimate auditors, Mr. Kaloji's not here, but he haunts me with the auditors all the time, that we have all the paperwork done. It's a lot of money, and I just think that doing it this way just makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so hopefully we'll get this approved on the consent agenda. We'll move forward. The Communications Committee met with Mr. Jimes and Ms. Barnett, and we reviewed the new website design and the agenda software. We made a few suggestions on some improvements of some of the features. And I think, Mr. Jimes, we're still shooting for the end of the year to launch the new website. Oh. Okay, give a thumbs up because we can't hear you. Okay.
Sorry, microphone was working. I feel good about that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. The Arts Council met last week to discuss the Division of Arts and Culture and some of the feelings that folks had about how we might move forward. This morning, a few members of the Arts Council and I met with Mr. Jimes and Ms. Mancuso to discuss recommendations, and we've shared some information. The top line recommendation from the Arts and Culture Council is that we keep arts and culture as a division within the Department of Community Services. And it's pretty much what we're doing now. We're going to try to look for the disconnects that might have happened in the past and try to move forward with that. So that will be happening. Boards and committees. This is the time of year we do the demographic study. So I will be circulating the questions that we send out in case anyone wants to fine tune them. And we'll get this out to all the members. I just would appreciate if you all could just reinforce with members of the boards and committees that you are liaisons to have people fill these out. We sort of get a burst of responses and then they kind of lag for a while. The next item I have is the Cannabis Review Committee. We have met a few times and we've come up with a framework for moving forward. And all indications are now with seemingly the election being settled, that the adult use cannabis will begin for real in February. And we would like to get a ordinance adopted by the end of the year so that we're not put at a competitive disadvantage with other municipalities that are looking to welcome businesses in. So we've come up with a framework. As I said, I drafted an ordinance, and we are going to meet as a committee during the week of November 8th. We want to bring the cannabis proposal to the Township Committee on the 15th for discussion. And based on that discussion, draft introduce an ordinance on December 7th and have a hearing and a final passage on December 21st. So that's the timeline. And I did circulate the working paper today so you can read it. It's 13 pages, so take your time. So the Engineering and Public Works Committee, it looks like it's going to be an all-day meeting now with all the additional agenda items that were put on. We will begin discussing the next steps with DeHart Park. I just want to remind people what we put in the interpretive statement. We said if the referendum passes, the Township Committee will move forward with plans. If the referendum does not pass, the Township Committee will discuss with the community other measures to improve the field at DeHart Park. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to start having the conversation within our Engineering and Public Works Committee and try to figure out how to move forward. That committee has representatives from the Department of Public Works and Engineering, and those would be the people who are going to look at the what's possible and who are what's the professional experts we need, and then we'll engage the community in that. And I just want to say a couple things about Election Day. I thought it was a good election. People came out a little disappointed about the turnout, even though we had lines. Those were due mostly to the new technology that was being used. Our turnout was not that good in Maplewood relative to, if we talk, Ms. Fritzen was talking about when all the numbers you were giving us and the numbers that the pre-vote numbers will probably be up where around 7,500 votes. We have 21,000 registered people in town, so that's not a real top shelf election draw. So we're going to have to continue to work to get people engaged, and I think those of us who are elected officials have to work to get ourselves engaged with people on some of these issues. I did want to say about the turf field. I thought, I think there were some people going to extremes on either side, but in general, I think this is what democracy is about. People put signs out because they support things, and neighbors, one has a pro and one has a con, and that's what happens. In our town, we tend to be sort of uniform in our support for, when Biden ran, you saw mostly Biden signs, but in towns around us, you see, pro and con all the time. So I think that's just the nature of democracy. I do think that there were a couple instances, and we did hear of one on Sunday night where there was vandalism at someone's house, and she came to see me yesterday at the polls, and she's very upset, as she should be. And there's never any call for vandalism and damage to someone's house. This person had damage to her home, and also signs were put on her lawn. And Mr. Lembrick and I had signs put on our lawns. People came on our property, and it was not right. And it was not right what happened to her. So I think it's important that as we have these difficult debates in town, that we respect one another and that we continue to move forward. Whatever the outcome yesterday on the turf issue, we're going to move one way or the other, because the field, I think we all agree, whatever the vote was, we have 100% in agreement that the field needs to be better than what it is. And that's our job now, and that's our responsibility now. And we're going to take that on and get that field to be different than what it is now. And it's going to take money, it's going to take energy, it's going to take creativity, and it's probably going to take some changes in management. To be honest, we can't utilize the field as much as we have been. We have to take time to rest that field if it's going to remain as grass. So that's got to be part of our conversation too, not just fixing it up, but how we better manage it. And that's our charge and that's the responsibility. And as long as I'm chairing the Engineering Public Works, that's the direction that I'm going to lead the conversation. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Limbrick. We'll now hear from, sorry, thank you, Mr.
That's
We'll now hear
okay.
from Mr. Limbrick, sorry.
I've been called worse.
Yep.
And
I'm
look
ahead.
alike.
Mr. Limbrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually going to start by, where Mr. DeLuca left off and agreeing with him. I was disappointed to learn of trespassing and vandalism recently that seems to be related to the election and particularly the contentious referendum regarding the proposed turf field at DeHart Park. As Mr. DeLuca referenced, our colleagues and we on the Maplewood Township Committee condemned it when it happened at our homes last year. And I feel it's appropriate for us to denounce it now when it happens to others. Regardless of what side of a political issue any residents are on or any of us elected officials are on, people need to respect each other's viewpoints, and certainly people need to respect each other's property. And while I feel strongly that our community overall needs to do a better job at disagreeing with one another without being disagreeable, I'll have more to say about that at another time. But for tonight, I have to say that we certainly must, at a minimum, be able to disagree with each other without resorting to cowardly common criminality. And that's what we've seen in some instances. To the residents who've been victims, I'm sorry that your property and your sense of security in our community was violated. And I know how you feel. And I urge anyone who did these things to reevaluate your actions and do better going forward. Now to move on to some more positive things, I want to thank Ms. Fritzen and her great team for all their hard work yesterday in getting this election. Getting us through another election. The mayor made a great point. Every few months we have a different way of conducting elections these days. But Ms. Fritzen and her team roll with it. They make sure that people know where they're going, that people know how to vote, that everyone does get to vote and that all those votes are counted. So Ms. Fritzen, thank you. You and your team have always done a great job and you continue to do so regardless of the challenges and obstacles that are thrown at you by the state, the county, by circumstance and other factors. So thank you. I want to congratulate Nancy Adams and Jermaine Kripe on their election to the Township Committee yesterday. Nancy, it's obviously been a pleasure to serve with you for the past 6 years and particularly to run with you twice. I know that you're going to continue to make great contributions both to this body and to our community in your third term. Jermaine, I don't see you, but I know that you're in the audience tonight. And I want to tell you what former mayor and committee member Jerry Ryan told me back in 2015 as I was coming on to the Township Committee. There is nothing like winning your first election. So enjoy it. And I hope that you enjoy serving this township as much as I have, and congratulations. While we're at it, I also want to congratulate Governor Murphy and Lieutenant Governor Oliver, who have just been declared the winners. It's closer than the experts thought, but a win is a win. I also want to congratulate Senator Cody and our great assembly people, Mila J.C. and John McKeon, on their reelection. And I want to, while I'm not sure the results are final, I want to just thank all of those who ran for the South Orange Maplewood School District Board of Education. I've said it privately a bunch. I'm sure I've said it publicly. I think that board is the most thankless unpaid job in America. And And, yet we still have people who care enough about our kids and about this community to not only, give up their time to do it, but to run for it and work hard in the campaign. So I want to thank everyone who ran and congratulate to those who won seats. Lastly, I want to just remind the public of a few upcoming meetings. Next week, the Community Board on Police, which otherwise would have met tonight, has moved its meeting to next Monday night, November 8th, because obviously they didn't want to conflict with the Township Committee meeting. So their meeting will be next Monday night at 7:30 p.m. That's via Zoom. You can get the link to that on the Township website. And then the regular Township Public Safety Committee meeting will be on its regular night, which is the second Wednesday of the month. That'll be next Wednesday, November 10th. And that will also be at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. And you can get the link to that on the Township website. So thank you to everyone who came out and voted yesterday. And Mr. Mayor, that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Lindbergh. I'll first start off by saying I want to congratulate Ms. Adams, Ms. Kripe on their victories. Ms. Kripe, welcome aboard. We're happy to have you. And as you already experienced in our closed session, there's a lot of work ahead. And so we're looking forward to you being part of our efforts to move the township forward. I also want to say thank you and congratulations to Ms. Adams coming back for the third term. Outstanding. We look forward to your work and your continued efforts on everything related to sustainability, which we're going to talk about. I don't want to steal your fire, but we're going to talk about a really important issue that Ms. Adams and I have worked on. Ms. Adams has led regarding some of the sustainability initiatives for the township and also for MAPSO as well. We talked about, I think, the referendum ad nauseum, but it is a fact that we received at least 2 communications in the last 3 days regarding property damage, one which I replied to immediately and one that Ms. Adams replied to this afternoon. And, what we do is when we get these issues, we go right to our police department because these are investigations in which our police chief has to address. Again, for the most part, people were very passionate and voted one way or another, and passion is great. But when you take it over the line with some of the activities by a few, on both sides, it's unnecessary. And what we have to do is now we have to move forward. Yes, and as Mr. Lucas said, we 100% agree that the current trajectory we're on is not sustainable, no pun intended. And we need to figure out what's going to make the most sense for our kids. Ms. Adams talked about reconvening a subcommittee, which I do recall we had years ago. I love that idea. Mr. DeLuca talked about leveraging his committee as part of our internal conversation. And I definitely love that idea as well. And I think the trifecta in this process is also to get the people involved right away. And so many people reached out to me on both sides. They've said, listen, Mayor, I was against the ordinance, but I want to get involved. Others said, it didn't pass, but I want to get involved. So what I'm sharing my screen now is my township email address and also a subject line. I hope the Village Green and Tap Into will take a photo, but send me an email, subject line, athletic field / green space task force. In the body, put your name, your email address and phone number. This will be those who talked about they're ready to do the work now that the referendum has not passed and we're moving forward. Now is the time to put your time and energy into this process. So I'll be collecting names of residents who are interested to move forward as the third part of this trifecta strategy to be part of a task force, which will align with our committee as well as our subcommittee. But as you can see, if we have this subcommittee along with the task force and the committee, we can collectively move forward and find a solution that will work for the Township of Maplewood. In terms of other things that I want to discuss, I want to bring to everyone's attention that the master plan subcommittee has completed their draft of the RFP. I'll be sharing that with my colleagues, Mr. Gimes and Mr. Desiderio next week, so we can put the finishing touches on it and get it out to bid as an official RFP. The Finance Committee also met earlier late last month to discuss revenues and expenses, and that information was subsequently shared in the report which all my colleagues received for this meeting. And then finally, shared services, we continue to move forward. We are now entertaining individuals who will be interested in becoming our next fire chief, and other conversations are moving forward as well. So that is my report. And again, thank you to Ms. Fritzen for her efforts. That is my report, and we'll now move forward with our discussion items. And we'll first hear from Ms. Adams regarding our Zero Waste Community Initiative. Ms. Adams.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let this committee know and ask that we move forward with passing a resolution as our sister town South Orange did at their meeting on October 25th. It basically allows the townships to move forward with a public bid, a joint public bid for collection and processing services designed to advance the production of zero waste. This is a part of the subcommittee that Mayor, you and I sit on with the joint consultant Zero Waste Associates. The plan is to likely move with a joint bid that ends up in hopefully separate but identical contracts with a hauler, and each town still has a different separate administration, and but we'd be staying in contact with each town. So it's sort of a semi-shared service, if you will. But really what we need is to put this out to bid so that we can see if this is even something that's possible. Bottom line is we're trying to see if we can lure, if you will, more bidders to our recycling hauling, recycling collection by joining it up or grouping it with garbage collection, residential garbage collection, and possibly organic waste, whether food and or leaf pickup. So, but basically we just need a resolution like the one South Orange passed, which I shared with Mr. Desiderio a couple of weeks ago, and to embark on a planning process to develop the strategic plan and procurement strategy to reduce waste and increase recycling and composting. We've been working with, like I said, Zero Waste Associates to conduct surveys of local and regional processors, collection service providers, and other communities. They've provided us with a strategy that they presented to this body in our joint meeting in the beginning of October. And they recommend to us that we consider a joint procurement strategy to have this policy decision be for implementation, staff administration, and establish a joint working group, much like we have now, with the responsibility for designating a lead agency and creating and releasing an appropriate public bid. So until we put this out to bid, we don't really know if we actually can even do this. So that's really the main reason for putting this out to bid. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Desiderio, if we're not obligated to accept any specific bids by putting this out to bid. And I believe, and Mr. McGee could clarify with me, I believe the answer to that when we talked about it at our last subcommittee meeting was that that would be part of the bid specs, that we're putting this out there, but we're not required to accept any of these.
We generally put in all our bid specs that we reserve the right to reject all bids for whatever reason. So,
Right. Okay.
I'm sure that'll go in. I'm sure that both the South Orange qualified purchasing agent, our purchasing agent, when they put the stuff together, we'll include that.
Yes. Okay.
And
So that
I concur. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I'm just putting it out for discussion since it's a discussion item, and in the hopes that we'll pass a resolution like South Orange did, preferably tonight if we can.
Right. And I concur with Adams. I support this initiative. And I think really we just want to go ahead and get this out in the market, if you will. Bundling of services, a shared service kind of construct with South Orange gives us more weight, if you will, like other initiatives we've done at the county and also with energy and also, at the other levels as well. And the other thing too is one thing we talked about in the subcommittee is, the operation component of it. We don't want to put any additional burden on our municipalities. That's a big part of it because obviously, theoretically managing utilities is a heavy lift. And that's part of, that RFP as well. So we don't have to, that's outsourced. That's something that we don't have to incur. So.
Yeah, we were hoping that any bidders would, and we'll be asking for it in the bid specs, is to put out that just like they do now, they bill us individually as residents, that they will maintain that responsibility so that it doesn't fall on either municipality's administration.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Lundberg.
Yeah, I just wanted to just note that, the resolution that Ms. Adams is talking about is resolution 326-21, and it's on the consent agenda, which, spoiler alert, I plan on moving in a few minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Lundberg.
So I have a few questions. And let me tell you, some of my discomfort is not with the creating the joint bid, but releasing the joint bid. I guess I'm concerned that based on the presentation we saw here from Zero Waste, that we're moving to we're moving to remove the backyard collection of our garbage. That's what I saw in the Zero Waste. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm hoping you tell me that, but
I can answer that real quickly. That may or may not be the case. And that will all go into sort of the cost savings. And of course, so the part of the presentation you're referring to was, that may be part of the way to make this work. And that's really container driven. If we're having this, done by, there's possibility of this being the kind of system where the truck every resident has a specific container, and that goes to the pay as you throw thing too. So that's operational, not necessarily a given by any stretch.
well, how would you do the bid? Would you do the bid alternate? Would you have backyard collection and then front yard collection as an alternate?
No, I think it's more of the pay as you throw, and I can't really answer that because I don't know what the bid will look like right now. This is moving us forward, being able to go out to bid for it and seeing what the answers come back as.
If I may just follow up on what Mr. DeLuca said, Ms. Adams, do you anticipate that the RFP is going to come back to the township for its approval?
I'm not sure. If we need it to, it can. And it's a bid, not an RFP, just to be clear.
It's a bid. Okay, I'm sorry. You're right. Okay. And the other question I have, Ms. Adams, is have we or the consultants checks with the BPU? Because I mean, it's a number of years since I went through this process, but the BPU was the one who assigned us the particular hauler that we have now. And then the second hauler, when they got their authority, also went through the BPU. Have we checked to see if the process that we're employing is permissible and that we can terminate our present relationships?
I don't recall it being the case, honestly, but that doesn't mean that's something that we can't go back and take a look at really quick. That's a question that we'd have to follow up on because I don't remember.
I think the consultants should just check on that. That's all. That's something for them to
Yeah,
check off.
actually, one of the consultants is here if we need him to come on. Nick?
Let's do that, yeah.
Could you make Neil Seldman a panelist? Because I don't remember, and Frank, Mr. McGee, I don't remember.
Yeah.
That being the BPU being brought in as far as approved, collection agencies.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. That's a fair question.
yeah. Mr. Seldman, can you hear us?
You're on mute, sir.
You're on mute, Neil, if you can hear us. Mr. Waltz, did he leave and come back the way, that little thing they have to do when they're being made a panelist, or?
It seems like he did. He's here, but his video is off and his microphone is off. So Mr. Sullivan, if you can hear us, you just got to turn your video on and your microphone on.
So
So,
until that gets figured out, we can follow up on that for sure, obviously. And I think it's fair, of course, for the bid to come, at least get distributed to the Township Committee before it goes out for approval. This resolution doesn't.
That's not what the resolution says. I would be happier if we said, for the purpose of creating a joint bid and then bringing it back so we could take a look at it before releasing it.
I don't see any problem with that, Mayor, do you?
no, I
It'll
don't.
delay things a little bit, not much.
Yeah, I was just pulling up the resolution right now. If that wording needs to be added, I'm okay with that as well. And we can bring it back on the 15th.
I'm just thinking that, as much debate we had about the turf, you start discussing people's garbage, whether it's backyard or front yard, we're going to have a lot of people that have things to say about it. And we're going to have to really be clear before we go out to bid in what we're asking, because there's going to be an assumption that if we're going out to bid and we say it's going to be front yard garbage pickup, that's what we're supporting.
Yep, that's a fair point. So
Okay.
so Ms. Adams, you and I can go back and tweak the resolution.
I'll take care of it, Mayor. And Ms. Adams, Mayor, maybe Mr. Seldman could just reach me at my office and we can talk through the BPU issue. I can give him the history that I know about it, okay?
That'd be great.
Okay. So, Mr. Limbrick, when you make your motion, please note.
I'm going to take out 326-21 for now.
Correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, let me just ask, just for process, do you want to just amend it?
Yeah.
We can pass it tonight with the, that it'll come back before it's released, it'll come back to the governing body?
Yes, please.
Yeah, what I'm going to insert, if I may, in number 2, if we want to talk about it, it says the lead agency in creating and releasing an appropriate public bid, and I'll insert after approval by the Township Committee. So it comes back to you for approval before it goes out.
Okay, and does it have to come to a TC meeting, or can it be approved through distribution?
No, it's going to have to get, no, it's going to have to come back to the Township Committee for approval.
We have to authorize a bid, right?
Yeah, so it's going to have to come back on whatever the next meeting is, 18th,
15th.
No, the 15th.
15th.
And Mr. Desidero, where are you adding that language in the resolution?
In number 2, on page 2, the township shall establish a joint working group with the village, should the village be willing, and the goal and responsibilities for designating a local lead agency and creating and releasing an appropriate public bid after approval by the Township Committee for the collection and processing of waste.
Got it.
So I want to get in there after approval by the Township Committee.
Okay.
I'll correct it and recirculate it.
Okay, I see right there, third line.
And
Okay,
Mr. Limbrick, when you do it, you'll simply say as amended for that one.
All right.
okay.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Okay, we'll now move on to discussion item number 2, best practices. I know Mr. Cloger is not with us, so Mr. Johns, if you'd like to lead this discussion. We also received this document as well. Mr. Johns.
Sure. Not much more than what I said in my report. The statute requires this to be discussed by the Township Committee and voted on at a public meeting, which you're doing tonight. We received a 93% based on our answers. This process has been in place, I'm going to say probably around 10 years now. Best practices, as far as I remember, I would say in the beginning, the process was a challenge because when you're trying to come up, the state's trying to develop a best practice for 565 municipalities. Everybody runs a little differently, but the evolution of this document over the last decade or so has gotten a little better, in my opinion. So I've never had an experience where any of my towns that I've been involved in did not get the full state aid. And, this is no different, because I do find that, despite a lot of talk, most towns, most municipal governments do run rather efficiently and very ethically overall by and large. And I think that's the case here. So, all the questions were answered appropriately. We've made any modifications that we've been required to make. And, I'm satisfied with the document as prepared by the CFO, and I've inserted my comments to him as needed. So beyond that, there's not much questions, or not much I have as far as what's there, unless you have any specific questions on the items.
Any discussions? Any discussion? No, perfect. All right. Thank you, Mr. Gimes. Yeah, it's a strong report. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda, and I will entertain a motion, Mr. Limbrick.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move items on the agenda, on the consent agenda, 12A through 12E, 12F as amended, 12G through O, and items 13 and 14 on the consent agenda, including resolutions 320-21 through 325-21, resolution 326-21 as amended, resolution 327-21 through 334-21, and approval of the June 1, 2021 regular session minutes and the October 5 and October 19, 2021 closed session minutes.
Second.
Any discussion?
I hope
Hearing
not.
none, Ms. Whitson, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Limbrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you, Mr. Limbrick. We'll now move on to agenda item number 15, which is public comment on any subject matter, limited to 3 minutes. I'll yield the floor to Mr. Waltz.
Good evening again, Mayor and Township Committee. We will now begin the second public comment portion of the meeting on any subject matter. If any meeting attendee would like to address the Township Committee, please use the raise your hand function. We will transfer you over to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak. Would anybody like to address the Township Committee? Mayor, first I have David Humer.
Can you hear me, or is my voice garbled?
We
We
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you, Mr. Humer.
Oh, boy. Okay, good. Thank you. David Humer, 26 Nelson Place, and I'm commenting in the spirit of continuing the conversation on Fields. Although I do want to second the mayor's remarks, and I want to start by thanking the committee for approving and moving forward on spending additional money on the planning of the library. Ida was a disaster for the main building, but it has a silver lining, which is that we're really going to build a 21st century library. And a lot of the work we're going to do is to move the mechanicals so where 21st century weather does not affect them. So it's an unfortunate expense, but it's going to make the library better. And I appreciate, as always, your continuing efforts to do that. I want to congratulate Nancy Adams. You've served our town well, and I'm glad you're going to put another 3 years in. And I have to say, I worked the election all day yesterday, and Liz Fritzen and her staff did a really excellent job under very challenging circumstances, and would urge you in your roles as elected officials to talk to the election board about training poll workers and hiring poll workers, because it was a deficiency. One thing I want to point out is that although I agree with Mr. DeLuca that our turnout could be high, I think our rolls are inflated because, again, of the election board. And I want to point out that by my calculations, 92% of the voters who voted yesterday in Maplewood voted on the bond referendum. And so I think the vote on the bond referendum was an accurate reflection of how people in Maplewood feel about this. And while I've been at least partially heartened by some of the comments from the TC tonight about the process going forward, I have some concerns, but I also have some optimism. I want to talk about my experience yesterday. I was at Columbia High School handing out literature. I spent 4 hours in the morning with a neighbor who was a yes proponent. And so we were literally handing voters 2 cards, one that said vote yes on turf and one that said vote no on turf. And I spent an hour in the evening with a neighbor of mine from Nelson Place, and her son in his Cougar soccer uniform, again, they're saying yes and saying no. And our conversations were entirely civil. And we discovered that we have a 99%,
30 seconds.
99% commonality, which is that we want improved recreational facilities for our children. And we are very frustrated with the failure of the TCs past and present to deal with this issue. Collecting names is nice, Mr. Mayor. You have an open space trust fund. You have a rec advisory committee. You have a green team, and you have lots of people who want to help.
10 seconds.
On both sides. I really, frankly, want to hear some concrete plans about a process that's going to make this better and not talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Humer.
Mayor, could I just respond for a sec?
Sure, Ms. Adams.
And I know we don't typically, I just want to say, I think this is the beginning of the conversation, Mr. Humer, and through everything that Mr. DeLuca and I and the mayor said during our conversation, I think this is, we're going to end up probably somewhere where we'll all be happy, but we need to do a little exploration first. But I think what you heard tonight was commitment from the TC to figure this out and to do it as well as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Wallace, who else would like to address the TC?
Mayor, next I have Joe Strupp. We'll convert you to a panelist, give you 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Can you hear me, I hope?
Yes.
Okay. I know many of you from my former website, maplewoodian.com, which I ran and covered the township for 8 years from 2010 to 2018. I am currently a reporter at the Asbury Park Press. I'm also the author of a new book, A Long Walk Home, about the unsolved murder of Carol Ann Farino. This is what it looks like. Not coming through great. Carol was a 17-year-old Columbia High School student in 1966 when she was murdered while on her way home from an evening job at a diner in Maplewood Village. That diner, Milt's Cup and Saucer, was located where now exists Anthony Garubo's salon. That killing occurred 55 years ago tonight. At just about an hour ago, 55 years ago, Carol was walking home somewhere between Maplewood Village and her house on Jefferson Avenue. She usually walked along Maplewood Village, or along Maplewood Avenue, and turned right on Jefferson toward her home at number 5. Since her killing on November 3rd of that year, police have found no suspects and consider the case unsolved, as does the Essex County Prosecutor's Office. From research, I found many former friends of Carol, as well as her sister Cynthia, a 1972 graduate of Columbia, who remain curious and in search of answers to this brutal crime. For Cynthia, the killing has been an ongoing issue and mystery. Most recently worsened when both the police and prosecutor's office refused to provide her with any information about the case or any insight on their investigation, despite the fact that it's been going on for more than 50 years. What has been done in that time and what may be in the works to solve this tragic crime remain unknown to her, as well as to me and many others. I believe she's the only Columbia High School student who was killed in town during their time as a student here, other than, of course, the tragedy of Musa Forfana, the wonderful Columbia student and soccer standout who was unfortunately killed just a few months ago. Now, thanks to great police work, his alleged killer was found and is facing likely prosecution. But for Cynthia Farino and many of Carol Ann Farino's friends who still live in the area, finding out about her case has continued to hit blockades.
30 seconds.
I would ask on her behalf and my own that you put your influence to work as a committee and as town officials to help find out what has been happening with this case, both from the prosecutor's office and the police department, and give Carol's sister and others still in town some closure and relief. In the meantime, I will provide a copy of the book to share with you and will be glad to help in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strupp. Thank you for the book, too. Take a look.
Mayor, next I have Detective Carlos Baez. We will convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes.
Detective Bias, you're on mute.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry about that. Sorry about the picture. Actually, she looks way better than me. I'm speaking here today, obviously as the PBA president. Also, I hear you guys talking a lot about unity and things of that nature and respect. So I'm gonna have a statement here. Just give me 1 second. I have a timer myself here, so I've been timing myself just in case you don't have to say 30 seconds left. Thank you very much for that. Here's my statement. Us first responders have been on the front lines since COVID-19 emerged. The township implemented a mask policy. We have complied. The township implemented a social distancing policy. We have complied. Township implemented a testing policy only for unvaccinated employees, and we also complied. Now the township implemented a vaccine mandate, which is unfair and with impractical time constraints, which is November 7th, which is a Sunday, by the way, on a weekend. The township allowed for the submission of religious and medical exemptions, and to my knowledge, they have all been denied or have gone unanswered at this time. If we are not vaccinated by Sunday, November 7th, regardless of our religious or medical statuses, the township threatens to place us on unpaid leave or face possible termination before the holidays. This doesn't just affect us, but our families. The majority of us are sole providers for our families. If we are placed on unpaid leave, we cannot put food on the table and we will lose our health benefits. The township is claiming undue hardship and taking away our pay. Meanwhile, numerous township employees have received hazard pay to work from home while we were here on the front lines. In addition, I wanted to ask, how many residents continue to be unvaccinated? We are not the problem. We truly want the township to reconsider the new mandate and revert back to testing mandate that was placed on August 2021. Newark Township is now testing their employees. They have lost no one. The New Jersey government is now testing their employees. They have lost no one. The judiciary, which ruled in favor of Newark, that's what you guys are using for this whole thing, is also testing. They're not putting their employees on unpaid leave. Maplewood screams of being inclusive and stigma-free. Shouldn't that apply to your employees who have been on the front lines since the beginning of COVID-19? That's basically it. I think I have 3 minutes in. Thank you very much for letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Detective Bias.
Mayor, next I have Debbie Fuma. We will convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes.
Ms. Schumer, you're on mute.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Well, first of all, thank you for having us tonight. Really, I'm addressing, and I love what Detective Bias just said, but my concern is around the same issue. And I've been very proud to be a part of this town where Mr. DeLuca did express how we are inclusive and how we have diversity in this town. Ms. Bennett has pronouns next to her name. I don't agree with it, but I respect it. Elizabeth shared her excitement over Governor Murphy winning yesterday. I didn't vote for him, but I respect Elizabeth's opinion and her party choice. While we were all home during quarantine, and our first responders were out every single day, we never questioned for 1 minute whether they were vaccinated or not, whether they were sick or not. They showed up every single day while we were staying at home. A lot of them stayed away from their families, not to endanger their family members. Someone on the board has apologized to our citizens for the vandalism that took place yesterday. He did not thank our first responders for showing up, because I'm sure those were the first ones that were called. You are putting people's lives in danger. You are putting these police officers and firemen on unpaid leave. That risks their family, their livelihood. And that is absolutely unfair. And not every town is doing it. This is not mandated. So instead of making a statement, I would like an answer to the question, why are we forcing this on our police officers and our firemen? Why are we not accepting religious or medical exemptions? Can somebody please answer that for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fuma. And Ms. Fuma, can you identify your address? Because you didn't identify your residence when you first came on.
I didn't realize that was mandated. I'm not comfortable putting that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Next up, I have,
We-
sorry, Mr. DeLuca.
yeah, we had asked that when people come on that they put their cameras on in past. So if we could have that, and if people don't want to put their cameras on, then maybe they could respond to us differently, through an email or something, because it's hard to, we don't know who we're talking to.
I've just put my video on so you can see my face, if that helps you. I'm not embarrassed to put my face on here, but I don't want my public address. I have 2 children. So if you're comfortable with that, my face is on camera right now.
Well, yeah, that's fine. I just would add to that when we're in town hall, someone comes to the microphone, they give their address of residence when they're speaking and during public comment. I don't see why it should be any different here, at least to know whether or not you're the speaker is a resident of Maplewood or not.
And listen, I appreciate all the concern about the address, but not one of you wants to answer the question. Not one of you wants to answer it. So if we're just getting rid of time in order not to answer the question, I understand that. I read it loud and clear.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Johns?
Given the fact that the PBA has openly threatened litigation to the township, it would be advisable just to politely listen and not comment.
Okay, I'll just say as chair of public safety that my expectation is that our public safety employees promote public safety and not put it at risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Okay.
Okay, Mayor, next up I have Heather Saslovsky.
Yep. Thank
Convert
you.
you to a panelist tonight, 3 minutes.
Good evening. I actually don't actually feel comfortable putting my address on. I will email it to Ms. Fritzen right after this. I know I've done that in the past and that has been okay. As you all know, I do in fact live in the Lightning Brook section of Maplewood. First, I want to note that I know the family involved in the incident mentioned by both Mr. DeLuca and Mr. Lembrick, and they asked me to note that they really do appreciate the public condemnation of the criminality at their home. So thank you for that tonight. I believe that process and progress go hand in hand and that community input is necessary. And when people feel heard, they trust their elected officials much more, even when they don't get what they want. Maplewoodians have a lot of shared ideals, at least the majority, even when we disagree on the plans to attain them. Importantly, I believe that 99%, maybe more, of Maplewoodians really do respect democracy. And I think we can do all of that even while tensions are high. We all know I'm not one for idealistic speeches. I'm practical and I'm committed to ensuring that the community is heard. And I have opinions, and I don't think DPW is the answer. I heard that in one of the comments about a committee regarding the fields. To that end, I too would propose a committee, and I think it should be a little bit different than what it's been proposed so far. Because I think there are certain entities that really need to be at the table and that the vast majority need to be community members. I would suggest you co-chair the committee by 2 different TC members, 1 on each side of the issue. I would suggest you include the chair of the Environmental Advisory Committee, the chair of the Open Space Trust Fund, the chair of the Rec Advisory Committee, the chair of the Senior Advisory Committee, a member chosen by Cougar Soccer, a member chosen by the CHS Ultimate Frisbee, a member chosen by the Excellent Soccer Club, and the chair of the Committee to Protect DeHart Park, as well as liaisons to other places like South Orange and the school district. I too agree that the sharing of fields is something we do, but sometimes informally and sometimes formally and sometimes unequally. I suggest we all really need to get to work immediately to create a truly sustainable plan for the best possible fields. And we need input from all involved. We know that there are certain community entities that really should have a voice in this and that represent larger groups of people. And
30
so
seconds.
all need to be at the table. You chose a lot of these people long before turf, and you should have them at the table because they know these certain areas. And you should have the community groups that use that field at the table. You should also have at least 2 members of the adjoining community. I think we all agree that this town cares about its parks and its fields.
10 seconds.
Maybe we can use that shared ideal to also show we care about one another and hearing from our community.
Thank you, Ms. Saslovsky.
Mayor, next up, I have Billy Esses. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes. I apologize if I mispronounced your last name.
Everyone, can everyone hear me? I'm not sure if I'm connected.
Yes, we can hear you, Officer Esses.
Sorry, some technical difficulties. Clearly, I'm not as savvy as I thought with technology. My name is Billy Esses, and I've been a police officer in Maplewood for almost 8 years. And I just have a question directed to Mr. Giamis. Is that how you pronounce it?
James, that's okay.
All right. My question is, sir, out of all the township employees, you've had close to 30, if not more, submit religious exemptions. We all got our denials within 30 minutes to an hour. The same exact denial letter going across to many different people with many different religions. What was your basis for that denial and what qualifies you to make that decision?
Officer, this is a public comment session and it's not a cross-examination. I will not be answering questions.
Okay. So then my second question would be to Mr. Lembrick. You're talking about us caring for the public safety. As Detective Baez and that other woman, I believe Ms. Fuma said, we never questioned when we responded to anybody, whether they had COVID, we had COVID, or if they had vaccination. We just went. We didn't care. So you're saying that it's better for us to be put on unpaid leave for public safety for a virus that you're 99.3% going to recover from, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated? That's where we're going with this when it comes to public safety?
I'm not going to debate the science with you, Officer Esses. The science is
Well,
clearly
just
on the
about
side of
public safety.
vaccination. Get the shot.
No, I don't have to get the shot. That goes against my religious belief, sir. I'm just saying science out of it. Public safety, you're putting the public at risk.
No, you're
The
putting the public at risk.
you talk about crimes, vandalism, this unsolved mystery going on. You're putting less cops on the road. That's not really caring about public safety.
You're making the choice to whether to get vaccinated or not. That's your choice.
Well, it's my body, my choice, as most of you really stand for. But in this case, it's my body, your choice. I'm being forced. My family's going to be out of medical benefits. I won't be able to put food on the table. That's not my choice.
Okay.
The choices that you're making impact the entire community. This is not just something that impacts the person who chooses to get vaccinated. It impacts everyone they come in contact with, the entire community. This isn't just a choice for you.
Officer, let me interject, if I may, please. This process is for you to make whatever statements you would like. You're entitled to do that. But the governing body, nor Mr. Jimes, has any obligation to respond to those. So if you want to make statements, that's fine, and you're certainly more than free to do that. And to the extent that I've taken any of your time, I'd ask that you be extended additional time. But do not expect answers. There's no answers going to be coming from them. Mr. Jimes will ultimately be the one who will determine the process and the procedures that are in place.
Well, Mr. Desiderio, I'm questioning what is the basis for him and what qualifications does he have to make this decision?
That's fine.
You deny somebody religious exemption within 30 minutes. You're giving everybody the same exact denial. That's the issue here.
Okay. We understand that, sir.
You have 30 more seconds.
I can't. As of right now, I think that's about it, because I mean, it wasn't as productive as I thought, but I appreciate your time for having me on here.
Thank you, Officer Isets.
Mayor, next up, I have Paul Sorvel. We'll convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes. Again, I apologize if I mispronounced you.
Mr. Wells, maybe you have to
have to-
tell him what he has to do.
You have to accept panelist invite, I believe.
I think Bailey might have sent them the request.
Here we go.
Mr. Sorvel, you're on mute.
And you need the camera on too.
Mr. Sorvel, you're still on mute and your camera's off. Okay.
I got it. Sorry. I can't get my camera to work. I'm trying to click start video and it doesn't seem to do anything.
Okay. Ms. Adams, I'm going to let him go without camera today.
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you though. All right.
Okay. Apologize for the delay. That's the second time this has happened to me. I wanted to make a statement about the implication of the referendum. And first of all, I applaud the mayor's creation of a task force. I plan to join it, and I especially applaud your combining the issue of DeHart Field with green space as the scope of the task force. And that's, I think, what the problem with the ordinance was, that it failed to incorporate green space in the proposal. I also applaud what Heather Saslovsky just said. It's the first time I've heard it, and I think it makes a lot of sense to bring in those experts and those constituencies into the process. I mean, they're the people who have many of the answers that we're seeking. And I also wanted to say that it hasn't really been understood or articulated that the real result of yesterday's election was to reaffirm Maplewood's status as a leader in standing for environmental and social justice issues. And I think that, and that's something that is something that the town should really be proud of, and something that we should promote in terms of our identity, our brand, that Maplewood is a town that believes strongly and is willing to stand for the importance of taking action to protect and preserve our green space, and to take the kind of actions that are necessary on every level to fight climate change. And this is a small step, but it's consistent with what has to be considered whenever we're talking about removing green space, and in this case, it was replacing with plastic with many toxins in it. So I just summarize by saying I'm very heartened by the result, and I think that Maplewood should be proud, and we should promote and publicize the result as and to tell the world that Maplewood is showing leadership on these issues. That's really what I have to say, and I look forward to working on a solution to the athletic field.
Thank you, Mr. Sorvel. Thank you very much.
Oh, 101 Plymouth Avenue.
Oh, yes, got you. Okay.
Got it.
Mr.
See
Walsh.
no one else, Mayor.
All right. Hearing no one, we will close our public comment for this evening. We are now at agenda item number 16, which is a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, all.
Aye.